Welcome to the full recap of A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah Maas. Don't forget to leave a comment on what book you would like to see next. Let's begin. The book begins with our heroine, Feyre, hunting in the woods behind her home. Her family, formerly rich but now poor due to her father's bad investments, is starving, and she is the sole provider because her father is unable to support them after having his knee broken by one of the creditors they owed. Her sisters, having never had to provide for themselves before, do not help her much at their small shack in the woods. Feyre has had to travel farther than ever before to hunt, and she is worried that she is getting close to fairy territory. Although a treaty was made between humans and the fairies, Feyre knows that the fairies break the treaty regularly and come across the wall, an invisible boundary designating fairy lands and human lands, to kill or torture humans. She sees a large deer, but there's also a wolf nearby stalking it. Knowing her family will starve without that deer, she shoots the wolf without having time to question whether it could be a fairy in disguise. When her first shot doesn't kill it, she aims a second arrow at its eye, and instead of attacking her in defense, it just stands there. So she kills it quickly. She and her sisters go into town to sell the wolf pelt. Her sisters only come with her because they know she'll make money, and they want some of it to spend on themselves. They are met at the entrance to the town by an acolyte from the Children of the Blessed, a cult claiming that fairies are good and that humans should worship them. The girl claims that many of the children have gone to Prythian and never returned because they are so well cared for. Nesta, Feyre's sister, scoffs and says it's not because they're being taken care of, but because they are probably dead. They quickly escape from the acolyte and continue into the town. Feyre ends up selling the wolf pelt to a mercenary near the town center who offers her more money than the pelt is worth, saying she has been in Feyre's position before. On the way home, Feyre sees Isaac in town and nods her head in greeting as she passes. She and Isaac are lovers, but their trysts are a secret, as he is going to be married soon. The next day, a large beast breaks into their house, demanding retribution for the dead wolf, who was a fairy after all. The beast, Tamlin, states that under the treaty, when a human takes a fairy life, the only option is that the human life must be taken by Prythian. She and her family do not question him, as they know fairies are unable to lie. He tells her that she has two choices: die by his hand here, or forsake the human realm and live out the rest of her days in Prythian. She, of course, agrees to go with him so he doesn't kill her. Tamlin uses magic to make her fall asleep so that she doesn't see the path leading from her home, and she wakes when they arrive at his manor. Rather than being a prisoner, he tells her that she is free to come and go as she pleases on their grounds, but not to enter into any other court, as he can't protect her there. He has changed into his human form now, and she sees that he and all the others at court have masquerade masks magically attached to their faces. She eventually begins to befriend Lucien, Tamlin's best friend who lives at the manor, Alice, the servant assigned to care for her, and also Tamlin himself. She had made a promise to her mother on her deathbed that she would care for their family. Feyre feels she is breaking that promise and wants to find a way home, so she doesn't allow herself to enjoy her time with them. Feyre learns that there is a blight upon the fairy lands that is releasing demon-like creatures throughout the courts to kill the fairies. The only cause mentioned at this time is a mysterious she, whose name isn't revealed. Feyre decides to uncover more information on her own and gets advice from Lucien on how to trap a Suriel, a type of fairy creature who can answer any question asked of it. Feyre traps one and learns that Tamlin isn't just any fairy, but one of the 7 High Lords, ruler of the Spring Court. She also asks if there's truly no way for her to ever return home, and the Suriel tells her that although fairies can lie, Tamlin didn't lie to her about that, and that if she wants to remain safe, she needs to stay with him. When Feyre asks about the cause of the blight, The Suriel tells her there is another land called Hybern, ruled by a king, rather than being split into courts like Prythian. There are 7 courts: winter, spring, summer, autumn, dawn, day, and night. The king is unhappy with the treaty that was signed with the humans, which allowed them to no longer be slaves and to have lands of their own. So, 100 years ago, he sent his most trusted commanders and killers into the human and fairy lands to begin waging a war. As spies, lovers, and courtiers, they infiltrated the courts and gathered enough information for the king to form his plan to take over. However, one of his commanders disobeyed him, and they now call her the Deceiver. At this point, some of the vicious blight fairies called Naga find them and begin attacking Feyre and the Suriel. Feyre lets the Suriel go and runs for her life. She's about to be trapped when Tamlin, returning from his border patrol, hears her screams and saves her. Tamlin and Feyre eventually talk about her desire to go home and fulfill her promise. He tells her that he can't send her home, but that he has ensured her family is well provided for and has altered their memories, so they believe she has gone to live with a dying aunt. Knowing that she isn't breaking her promise and that her family is being cared for, she relaxes and even begins painting again. One night, Tamlin tells her to stay in her room and not to leave the manor, as he must attend a fairy ritual called the Great Rite from Kalan Mai. She disobeys because she wants to see it, and although she wears a cloak to hide that she's human, she is cornered by 3 fairies who plan to rape her. She is rescued by another fairy, described as the most beautiful creature she's ever seen, but she senses he is not really a savior and wants something from her. So, she quickly escapes from him as well. Lucien spots her and rushes her back to the manor, where he explains that the Great Rite marks the beginning of spring in Prythian and the human world. That night, Tamlin, as High Lord of the Spring Court, will undergo a ritual that regenerates his magic. The magic will consume him, and his sole purpose will be to find the maiden and couple with her to complete the ritual. Tamlin will kill a white stag as a sacrifice, then go to a sacred cave where a line of maidens will be waiting. No one knows who the chosen maiden is until the moment Tamlin's magic leads him to her. Lucien tells her that it's lucky he found her when he did, because Tamlin would have smelled her and chosen her to take into the cave. But it wouldn't have been the Tamlin she knows, as this is not a night for lovemaking. Embarrassed, Feyre returns to her room, falls into a restless sleep, and wakes when the music from the ritual stops, meaning it's been completed. She wanders downstairs and finds Tamlin waiting, still buzzed from the magic coursing through him. He traps her against the wall and tells her how he smelled her and went mad trying to find her. He was forced to pick another, and although the chosen maiden told him not to be gentle, he would have rather been with Feyre. Feyre taunts him, hurt that he even chose someone else, and asks why she would want someone's leftovers. He goes full beast mode and bites her neck, leaving a bruise. Although she's furious, she realizes how much she wants him, and he knows it too. Now that he's made his point, he lets her go back to her room. As she and Tamlin grow closer, he uses his magic to give her fairy sight, allowing her to see and feel what he does. She realizes she has been glamored all along, as there are many more fairy workers on the grounds than she had ever seen before. Even Alice is different. Rather than being human-like, as Feyre was led to believe, Alice is another type of fairy with bark-like skin. In the summer, a party is thrown at the manor, and Tamlin and Feyre finally reveal their feelings to each other and kiss after Feyre has a bit too much fairy liquor and loses her inhibitions. The next day, at lunch, everything goes bonkers, and Tamlin yells for Feyre to get behind Lucien. Knowing they've sensed something, or someone, that she can't, she quickly obeys, and Lucien glamours her so that she's invisible behind him. The reason for the disturbance turns out to be Rhysand, High Lord of the Night Court, and the male who had rescued Feyre on the night of the Great Rite. Rhysand senses Feyre even though she's glamored and threatens to tell Amarantha. His lover and the ominous she, always referenced regarding the blight. Rhysand asks her name, and she tells him it's Claire Bedor, one of the girls she knew from home. Rhysand says he might not tell Amarantha about Claire if Tamlin and Lucien beg him, and they grovel before him. Feyre is confused about why it matters if this woman knows about her, but doesn't question Tamlin's motives. Tamlin then sends her home, even though she wants to stay with him, and tells her that treaty be damned, he will keep her safe. And this is the only way, since he knows Rhysand will still tell Amarantha about her. When he puts her in a carriage home, he tells her he loves her, but she doesn't say it back, for fear that if she does, there's no way she'll be able to leave as she promised she would. When she gets home, she finds that her family really has been provided for. An unknown man had shown up at the shack and asked her father to make some investments for him, and they got rich again because of it. Feyre knows it was Tamlin's doing, but she's glad they're happy, even though Nesta seems very standoffish. Feyre's story is that their aunt died and left her a fortune in her will, and she's brought it home to them. Later, Nesta corners her and tells Feyre she hired a mercenary after Feyre disappeared and went into the woods to try to track her down. Feyre realizes the glamour about the whole aunt story didn't work on Nesta due to her iron will, and she's touched that her sister braved the woods to try to find her, and that she's kept Feyre's secret to protect their younger sister Elaine and their father. Feyre then tells Nesta everything. She finds her way through the wall and returns to the manor, only to find no one there but Alice. Alice tells her the whole story of the blight, the curse that keeps the masks on the spring court's faces, and how Amarantha took Tamlin because of it. Amarantha was the deceiver formerly mentioned by the Suriel. She went from court to court, charming all the High Lords on behalf of the King of Hybern for 50 years while she gained their trust. She had a younger sister, Clythia, who fell in love with a mortal warrior named Jurian during the war before the treaty between mortals and fairies. Jurian betrayed Clythia. He only wanted information to help the humans in their fight. He killed her and chopped her into pieces for Amarantha to find. Amarantha found him, and now wears a necklace with his finger bone and a ring with his eye in it. His soul is trapped inside. He's forever alive and her prisoner. After the treaty was enacted, Amarantha harbored such hatred for humans that she and the King of Hybern killed their human slaves rather than free them. She was so charismatic, though, that she convinced the High Lords her sister's death had changed her, and that she and the king were willing to open trade routes with the courts again. The High Lords never realized, nor did the King of Hybern, that the ships on those routes also smuggled in her army forces. Amarantha knew that even with her personal army, the High Lords were too powerful to defeat head-on. So she invited them all to a ball under the guise of diplomacy. She slipped potions into their drinks and stole their magic while they were passed out, leaving them with only their barest powers. With their magic nearly gone, she used her smuggled army to take Prythian in a matter of days and declared herself the High Queen. She built her palace under the sacred mountain and has ruled from there ever since. She held a masquerade ball in her honor at her palace under the mountain when she took power and commanded the spring court to attend. When they arrived, she offered Tamlin peace if he would marry her. He refused and said he'd rather marry a human than her. In response, she used magic to sear masks onto the court's faces and told Tamlin that only if he could make a mortal, one who truly hated fairies, fall in love with him within 49 years, she would restore his magic and lift the blight from Prythian. He spent years trying to break the curse by glamoring his soldiers as animals and sending them into the human lands to find someone. A key part of the curse was that the human must kill the fairy soldier unprovoked. So Amarantha would know the human hated fairies, on the off chance the human later fell in love with Tamlin. Most humans ran away, or the fathers of the girls killed the fairy soldiers. It wasn't until Feyre shot the fairy that the curse had a chance of being broken. All she would have had to do was tell Tamlin she loved him on the day of her departure, and the curse would have ended. But instead, knowing his time was running out, he chose to send her away to keep her safe, because she meant more to him than the curse or his court. Hearing all of this, and hoping she can still save him, Feyre goes to the court and declares to Amarantha that she's returned to save the man she loves. Amarantha realizes Claire wasn't Feyre after all, and shows Feyre Claire's body, which has been strung up on her palace wall, beaten and burned until unrecognizable. Amarantha asks Rhysand why he told her Claire was the girl Tamlin loved, and Rhysand replies that all humans look alike to him. Feyre knows that isn't true. Rhysand recognized her at the manor before Tamlin sent her home. Amarantha tells Feyre that if she can do one of two things, she'll still allow the curse to be broken. Feyre must either complete 3 trials to prove her love for Tamlin or solve her riddle, which goes, "There are those who seek me a lifetime but never we meet, and those I kiss but who trample me beneath ungrateful feet. At times I seem to favor the clever and the fair, but I bless all those who are brave enough to dare. By large my ministrations are soft-handed and sweet, but scorned I become a difficult beast to defeat. For though each of my strikes lands a powerful blow, when I kill, I do it slow." Feyre doesn't know the riddle's answer, and Amarantha throws her into the dungeon. After Feyre is beaten by her minions, Lucien sneaks in and heals her as much as he can without being detected, so she's ready for her first trial. After an unknown amount of time, Feyre is brought from the dungeon for the first trial. Amarantha says that Rhysand has told her Feyre is a hunter, so she must hunt. She throws Feyre into a muddy maze with a monstrous, razor-toothed earthworm called the Middengard worm, meant to kill her. Feyre manages to kill it by laying a trap made of sharp human bones from its previous victims, then luring it into the pit. The worm manages to bite her once, deep into the bone of her arm, before she defeats it. She ends up with a fever and infection from the injury when she's thrown back into the dungeon, since Amarantha offers no medical aid. Rhysand comes to her cell and offers to heal her, if she agrees to spend 1 week per month with him at his court for the rest of her life. She agrees after he cruelly twists her broken arm, knowing Lucien won't be able to help her this time. After he heals her, he leaves a swirling tattoo on her arm and a tattooed eye on her palm. Later, guards drag Feyre to a hallway, hand her a bucket of water, and order her to scrub all the mud off the floor before they return. Or they'll roast her on a spit and torture her, though not kill her. Feyre realizes the task is impossible. The water is dirtier than the floor. Lucien's mother, the Lady of the Autumn Court, appears and magically cleans the floor. She tells Feyre they're even now, because Feyre gave Amarantha her real name when threatened, sparing Lucien from torture. Another task Feyre must complete is picking lentils from an ash-filled fireplace without missing a single one, or she'll be tortured again. It turns out to be Rhysand's room. Since he's secretly helping her, he uses his magic to move the lentils into the bucket and glamours the guards so they stop tormenting her for fun. Each night, Rhysand drugs Feyre with fairy wine and forces her to dance before the entire court, including Tamlin, to humiliate him and show ownership over her as part of their deal. Feyre hates him but realizes, during her second trial, that he's actually helping her. That trial puts her in a pit with a fence down the middle. Lucien is chained on the far side. There are 3 levers on the wall. Amarantha tells her that one lever will save them. The other 2 will cause spikes to drop from the ceiling and kill them both. There's a riddle on the wall, but Feyre can't read. She begins to pull randomly when she feels a sharp stinging in her tattooed hand. She realizes Rhysand is guiding her. Trusting the signal, she pulls the correct lever and passes the second trial. The night before the third trial, Rhysand doesn't drug her. Instead, he dresses her in revealing clothes and paints swirling patterns over her body to match her tattoo. The paint will show if anyone touches her, because, as he says, he doesn't like people messing with his property. When Feyre and Tamlin sneak off for a private moment during the party, Rhysand interrupts and forces Tamlin to leave. He then kisses Feyre. She tries to resist, and Amarantha walks in. Feyre realizes Rhysand is protecting Tamlin by making it look like the paint was smeared by him, not Tamlin. The third trial forces Feyre to kill 3 innocent fairies by stabbing them in the heart. She doesn't want to do it, but she knows it's the only way to break the curse and free Prythian. The fairies' hoods are removed one at a time, so she must look each in the eye as she kills them. The first is a young male who begs for his life. The second is a girl who prays, then reassures Feyre it's okay. The third is Tamlin. Feyre remembers her conversation with Alice, who told her there was something about the curse she still wasn't allowed to say. She recalls how everyone in the spring court said Tamlin had a heart of stone. She had thought it was a metaphor, but realizes it's literal. She has never heard his heartbeat. Hoping she's right, she plunges the dagger into his chest. The blade pierces muscle, then stops. She was right. The crowd demands Amarantha break the curse. Feyre has completed the tasks, but Amarantha calls them fools. She says she only promised she would release the Fae if the tasks were completed, not when. And Feyre had simply assumed the riddle had the same terms. The curse breaks. The masks fall away. The High Lords regain their power. Tamlin kills Amarantha instantly. Feyre lies dead on the floor until each High Lord comes forward and releases a glowing gem, a kernel of power over her body. She awakens to find she has been reborn as a High Fae. The combined magic of the High Lords has brought her back from the dead and made her immortal. The book ends with Feyre and Tamlin returning to the Spring Court Manor. Though Feyre is happy the curse is broken and that she's with Tamlin, she feels deep guilt for the innocent lives she took. Rhysand appears, and she thanks him for helping her. He replies, "Don't thank me yet." She probably won't be so grateful once she begins spending that 1 week per month with him for the rest of her life. And that's it for A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah Maas. Stay tuned for Book 2 next. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment what you would like to hear next. Thanks for listening. See you in the next one.